What's going on, guys? With the 2012 NFL regular season schedules being revealed this week, I figured I might as well look at my favorite team's schedule, the Minnesota Vikings, and just analyze it a little bit. I've already talked in a video about the primetime matchups I'm most looking forward to and how Thursday Night Football will now be from week 1 to week 15. But I'm looking at the Minnesota Vikings schedule here. I'm not going to analyze it, go win-loss here and there. The draft hasn't happened yet, and I don't do that. But we start off the season. Minnesota will play at home at Mall of America Field against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then they will travel to Lucas Oil Stadium and take on the Indianapolis Colts, which will be Andrew Luck's first home game, assuming he's drafted next week. First overall, everybody expects him to be. But that'll be Andrew Luck's first home game, and I'm glad. I already knew the Vikings were playing against the Redskins and the Colts. I was just hoping it would be early in the season because I don't want those guys to be acquainted with their team. I just want the Vikings to get some victories this year, and so there's a very good chance Minnesota could start this year 2-0. It's against the Jaguars and the Colts. Maybe Minnesota can go 1-1 there, at least get one victory, and then they go against the San Francisco 49ers at home. They'll play against Randy Moss, against him at the Metrodome. I'm still a big Randy Moss fan, and I just hope he doesn't torch our secondary too bad. And then Ford Field in week 4 as the Vikings play their first divisional game against the Detroit Lions, who I expect to be a very competitive team this year. And then Minnesota will go home and take on the Tennessee Titans, so we could see Christian Ponder versus Jake Locker, two rookies from last year that were drafted very close to each other. And then Minnesota, here's a big game, on the road at Washington to take on the Redskins and RG3. And then we move on. Minnesota takes on the Cardinals at home in week 7, followed by their only primetime game of the season against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Thursday Night Football at home, which is the gameplay you're seeing right here. This year, every team gets a primetime game. And usually the Vikings play like the Packers, the Bears on prime time, but the division is now focused on the Bears, Lions, and Packers as being the competitors, so Minnesota's going to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in their only primetime game. And then they go on the road to the Seattle Seahawks, go home to play the Detroit Lions. They have a late bye week. They haven't really... Usually, if my memory is correct, they have their bye weeks more early in the season like they did last year, but they have a week 11 and then they have a tough stretch after that. At Soldier Field to take on the Bears in week 12, at Lambeau Field to take on the Packers, and they're back home to take on the Chicago Bears. Week 15 they go to Edward Jones Dome to take on the St. Louis Rams, to Reliance Stadium to face the Texans, and they end the season with a home game against the Green Bay Packers in the Dome. So I look at this schedule, I see a lot of very good competition, and I want this because the Vikings are a rebuilding team, and I think the best way for them to rebuild is obviously through the draft, get the players, but then to play tougher teams. And if you just look at the quarterbacks they play this year, alone in the division, 6 times to play Jay Cutler, Matthew Stafford, and Aaron Rodgers. And then if you look at the other quarterbacks that they'll end up playing, there's Matt Flynn, Andrew Luck, RG3, Sam Bradford, Josh Freeman. There is a lot of very good quarterbacks Minnesota will be facing this year. Jake Locker, who knows how he's going to be. And I just think that makes it so much more evident that Minnesota needs to fix their secondary, get some good players in this year's draft. I have a mock draft right now I'm working on, and I'll probably have a Vikings-only mock draft where I just mock every pick they have and who I'd like them to select. But I think it's pretty obvious Minnesota has secondary woes. If you watched them last year, you have a lot of passing touchdowns. Opposing quarterbacks' rating was through the roof. And they have addressed that somewhat in free agency, getting Zach Bowman and Chris Carr, because last year the Vikings, their defense actually played pretty well early in the season, and then injuries started to happen. The offense couldn't score, and things went way downhill. They had like Marcus Sherrills, Asher Allen, and just really not starters starting. So they have depth now, and there's an opportunity in the draft to go get some good players. I think this is a 6 to 7 win team if they can play well. And they do have a tough schedule. I think this will help them rebuild, playing good competition to get better. I do like their schedule. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next time.